Welcome everyone. This is a meeting of the Forest Hills Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a community public hearing. There is time for public comment during the meeting as indicated in agenda item 10. If you are interested in speaking at the meeting, please go ahead and fill out an interest card over there by the doors where you came in. They will be collected right before the superintendent's report. And now I would like to welcome Principal Amy Burton-Major, and thank you very much. Powerful ways to make content knowledge sticky for kids. Our Central Woodlands teachers strive to provide experiences that grow students' communication skills, unleash their creativity, and build their capacity as collaborators. With project-based learning, or PBL, students learn by actively engaging in real-world and personally meaningful projects. Kids explore their curiosities, share their thinking, and work to answer complex questions, deepening their knowledge all the way along. Tonight, in celebration of our district guiding principles of learning and collaboration, Central Woodlands teachers and their students are excited to share the success of their PBL learning, collaboration, and classroom learning this school year. Please welcome them.
Good evening. I'm Patty Talley, 6th grade teacher here at Central Woodlands. And I'd first like to thank the board for all the support that you give to both kids and teachers. And as you may know, Central Woodlands was the recipient of a $20,000 grant from My STEM Network this year to increase project-based learning for all students. The money was designated for all 6th grade to have busing to Suttons Bay for a trip. That was our entry event into PBL this year, and for teachers to be trained in project-based learning. We had several teachers complete that training with future prep this fall, and Leslie and Amy are here to talk about that. We also have the entire 6th grade staff scheduled for training as they look forward to next year.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity for us to share our students' learning. I am Amy Guchis, and I am one of the 5th grade teachers. I teach alongside Leslie Crum-Parents, who will be presenting next. We had many takeaways from our 2 days of learning at the Kent ISD this fall. One of those was the creative sequence process. The basis of the PBL creative sequence are the 5 stages we guide our students through, from observation through validation. Each sequence begins with a driving question.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Crum-Parents, and as you know, I'm also a 5th grade teacher here. First, I'd like to thank Patty Talley for giving us the opportunity to learn what true project-based learning looks like. I am going to tell you about the driving question, which is the main question of a PBL project. It acts as a guide for students throughout the process. On the screen, we have some examples of driving questions we have used this year. The one on the far right was created by my students during our physical science unit. After unpacking the standards, I asked the students to create the driving question themselves for our unit on matter. And the one we agreed on was, how can we better understand matter? It is simple, yet it encompassed all that we needed to learn. Thank you.
Each stage of the creative sequence is enhanced by learning protocols. These protocols have been developed as a means of guiding students through the creative sequence. Protocols give students voice and choice when developing their project to answer the driving question. We've invited 5th grader Gotham to tell you more about his favorite protocol, and fellow 5th grader Olivia to highlight students' authentic learning this year.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Pavan Duty. Tonight I will be talking to you about protocols. Protocols are a tool for bringing organizations and directions to conversations where all voices have an opportunity to be heard. One of my favorite protocols is called the Ambient problem. To think about the driving question and to get to the heart of the problem we are trying to solve. We focus on the opposite solution. For example, when we look at the driving question, how can we lessen the negative impact humans have on Earth? We came up with as many ideas as possible to the question, what can we do to trash the Earth? It may seem silly, but by eliminating all the negative things, the agile problem, we were able to come up with real-life solutions to our actual driving question. Now I'm going to hand over the microphone to her.
Hi, my name is Olivia. Today I'm talking about project research and how part of the process is taking part in authentic learning, such as field trips and other educational experiences. One of our field trips was to the Kent County Landfill and Recycling Center. There, we learned how to lessen their impact on Earth. Another time, for social studies, we did a field trip to Ada Elementary to teach first graders how we become a country. Having authentic experiences with an authentic audience is a big part of the work. Yeah, it was an amazing learning tour. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Hawk, and I'm a sixth grade student in Mrs. Hall's class. One project my class focused on this year was observation on the CW campus in Alcatraz. In this project, we were given the freedom to decide how we present. Some groups decided to create a slideshow, but the most popular option was to create a video or a podcast. Thanks to a grant our teacher got, we provided with microphones and headsets that made creating the video much easier and made the video way more enjoyable to watch. We benefited from this project not only because of the environmental studies, but because of the real-world skills learned such as video editing and video editing.
My name is Caleb, and I too am a sixth grade student in Mrs. Hall's class. PBL has allowed us many additional outdoor experiences. Through project-based learning, Mrs. Talley is able to get everyone involved and aware of problems that we can solve. This year, along with working on many learning targets, we also have put in as much work on important soft skills. Through working together on projects, we have learned how to ask questions and solve problems. At the beginning of the year, many people did not ask questions. However, now whenever we do an experiment or project, kids are more than ready to ask questions. Another soft skill we have made progress on this year is working together. Through PBL, we have learned critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. We have greatly improved on this, and students understand how to talk to each other and make sure everyone has a chance to have their voice be heard.
That's when you start crying as a teacher, when your kids get up here and do that, and I'm reading, and so. As you heard from our students, PBL has given them many skills and opportunities that they may not necessarily have with traditional instructional methods. One of the main things that I really hope you take away from our presentation is the authentic learning that students are able to experience. And if you're bored, that's our new podcast that you can listen to. What I learned today, very cool.
In conclusion, and to further expand on authentic learning, which Olivia spoke about so well, I want to share a final announcement. During our Matter unit, our project involved making statistical posters for Grand Valley State University. I delivered those posters right before spring break, and I am pleased to announce that out of 100 posters in the grades 4 through 6 category, the two lovely ladies sitting behind me were part of a group who got first place. And their poster on the porosity of rocks is now heading to the national competition. Dr. Adrian from the statistical department came to present the winners with certificates and a plaque for our school. He came today, as you can tell from the dress I'm wearing in the photo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's, I have to say, my kids all came through here, and 2 of them were lucky enough to have these fine ladies as their teachers. The project-based learning looks amazing, and it's so gratifying to see kids being so engaged and involved and loving what they're doing, which is so much easier when you can get out there and do hands-on work rather than just sitting behind your desk and listening to a lecture. That's way boring. So, but thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question. I have to just say I'm incredibly impressed with how you all conduct yourselves. Before Olivia even mentioned soft skills, I'm thinking they have collaboration, they have creativity, they're solving problems creatively, and they're collaborating like there's no tomorrow. Even the way you passed off the speech to each other, you guys are amazing. We are incredibly proud of you. Thank you.
Okay. As I say,
She said exactly what I wanted to say. I'm just so impressed with their speaking skills and getting up here in front of all of us. It's very impressive.
And I just wanted to say thank you to all of our students, but also to our teachers. Leslie and Amy, thank you for this. And Patty, you've been a Pied Piper for this for I don't know how many years now. And I'm just so grateful that your work and your excitement is continuing to grow and expand and impact so many others on this. So thank you, Patty, for all your work over the many years on this. It began with you, and you can see what this has blossomed into. Thank you.
I just want to know if the kids are for hire at all for a couple projects I got for problem solving.
all right, well, we will then go on here to the next item on the agenda, our consent grouping. Could I have a motion, please, to consider the consent grouping?
I move we approve consent grouping items 5A through D.
A second?
Second.
All right, are there any items that a board member would like to fill out for special consideration? Any items that Superintendent Beebe would like to draw our attention to?
A few items tonight. I'd just like to point out and really extend appreciation for the individuals and parent support groups that are making donations to the district that the board is approving tonight. Our Northern Hills Middle School parent group and also the litigation section of the State Bar of Michigan donating for the Eastern Mock Trial team as they're going to the national competition as they won the state mock trial out to Arkansas, and then a family fund to help support our Educator Appreciation Week. So thanks to those gifts to the district. Also tonight, we are recommending that the board approve a revision, an amendment to an existing board policy. That's policy 3116 that deals with the district technology and acceptable use. This is a amendment being recommended by our policy provider to keep us in line with the current, just recently adopted rule from the Michigan Department of Education, the Office of Educational Assessment and Accountability. This is really amending the policy to have the policy reflect what our current practice is. And when students are taking a state of Michigan test, which isn't that often, doesn't happen every month of the year, but it happens at this time of the year in the spring where students take the M-STEP or something like the SAT, which the state has considered part of the state testing. They cannot use their personal devices on those tests, and that's what this policy speaks to about that. And so that currently fits with current practice, but just wanted you to be aware of that recommendation tonight. And then also, as I mentioned, we are recommending that the board approve a resolution for National Education Appreciation Week. The month of May is National Educator Appreciation Month, and this particular week that we happen to be in right here is part of that week, and all sorts of parents and booster groups and outside organizations express their appreciation to our educators, and this resolution officially adds the Board of Education to the front of that list, sharing their appreciation. That's all I wanted to point out.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Michelle, would you like to provide an update from finance?
Sure. We had a good finance meeting this month. Just a couple of items to us tonight for approval. The first is for a series of Spanish immersion textbooks, and this links with our instruction item as well. These are phonics and decodable books. You'll remember the last 12 months or so we've purchased these in categories multiple times for general education. These are some Spanish specific immersion textbooks for kindergartners through 2nd grade that will integrate into the reading and writing units of study. So this will come out of the general fund for an amount not to exceed $36,958. We are also always recycling our electronics, and all of the devices and monitors and electronics we have in the district are on about a 5-year life cycle, use cycle. And so every year we overturn some of that and bring new inventory in as old inventory goes out. So that comes to us tonight to the tune of 1,315 devices and 237 monitors that will be retired and thus replaced. 2 purchasing cooperatives were used. This will come out of the 2021 Capital Projects Fund for an amount of $710,000. Next item is an authorization to renew our Chartwell's contract for our food service management service that they provide. We have, made sure that this was accurate when I read this. We have partnered with them since 1979. They do a very nice job for us. We got a good overview in our committee meeting of all of the things that Chartwell's does for our food service programs in terms of personnel and management. In fact, with their large purchasing power, they often find allowances and rebates for us to take advantage of that exceed the total amount that we pay for them annually. So in 2019 was the last time their contract was officially voted on and renewed, and that renews annually, or by vote we renew that annually. This is our final year of that, so next year we will go to bid again and start the process again. But the recommendation this year is to reapprove them for a cost of, oh sorry, I had it somewhere, I didn't write it down there. $211,000 for the year, which is in keeping with what it largely has been. It's a 5% increase from last year. And finally, coming to us is another annual item to approve a resolution supporting the Kent ISD General Fund proposed budget for 23 and 24. The revised school code requires that local districts of ISDs review that proposed budget and then offer a resolution either approving or disapproving that proposed budget for the year. So we reviewed the outline of the proposed budget. Assistant Superintendent Davis and the team have reviewed in detail and found nothing noteworthy, nothing really of significance in terms of differences or changes in allocation there. Everything looked in order and as expected. So to us tonight is to approve a resolution to approve that Kent ISD budget for next year. And that is all we have.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Michelle? All right, then we'll turn it over to Mrs. Tryon for curriculum.
All right, at this month's meeting, we had a visit from our math and science vertical teams. And they were led by Andrew Way, and our teachers described for us the process that the district has created to enable our math and science teachers to learn from each other in the areas of best practices, instructional strategies, standards alignment, scaffolding from grade level to grade level, and then just overall goals for their subject areas as they move into next year and the year beyond. They presented, the teachers that presented, they talked about the professional development and planning that they've been able to do this year to define what excellent math and science instruction looks like. And they use their assessment results to determine that. Are they doing what they need to be doing? Does something need to change? And then areas that they want to target for improvement, and then what they're already doing that is leading to student success, what should continue, what should stay the same, because it's working really well for our students. So that was a great report. I think it's always great as a teacher to get into classrooms below you and above you and see what's happening with the kids who are coming your way and how you're best preparing the kids who you're sending on to make sure that they're ready for the next set of standards. So it's always good to hear from our teachers to that end. And then we have 2 curricular items that we are going to set for 30-day review this month that we will vote on in June. The first one is for Ada Vista, and it's in Spanish. It's, I don't know if Mary, you want to go with this? Evaluation, I know it's Evaluación de Nivel Independiente de Lectura. It's an intervention program for our K-4 students, and it is written in the Spanish language. So it will work to provide interventions for our Spanish immersion students who are struggling to meet grade level expectations in literacy. But what's different about this than our other intervention programs like LLI, which we use in our traditional educational settings, is that it is written in Spanish. So it targets that deficit or that need for our Spanish immersion students better, with more accuracy. And so just having an intervention system in place for our Spanish students helps to support them in a more robust and accurate way when they are having those literacy intervention needs. And secondly, Jesus presented us with a curriculum to be used with our Mandarin immersion students, so in the K-6 setting. So we've actually never had an intentional program or curriculum for our Mandarin immersion program that was designed specifically for immersion learning. It has been a lot of teacher-created materials that have been created in consult with the Confucius Institute. And so while this has done its job, it is obviously tedious work, it can lack rigor at times, and it can result in some inconsistency from grade level to grade level, because it is dependent on that translation. So Mandarin Matrix is a program that is intentionally designed for immersion students learning Mandarin. It is appropriately scaffolded, it ensures a more accurate following of the scope and sequence of the material. It also includes interventions in the immersion language, and it will prepare our students better as they move into Mandarin at the high school level, which, as you know, is a very rigorous program. There are not a lot of curriculums out there that exist for Mandarin immersion. There's 2 available to review. And this one was chosen to best meet the needs of our Forest Hill students. It's, like I said, there's not a lot of them out there, and so this was a good find and is what the instruction department thinks is going to be best for our students in that program at the K-6 level. So, as always, all of the materials that are up for review are in Word book to look at. All of the information is there. So if there's any questions or you want to look at that more in depth, you can do that between now and June. That's it. Question?
Point of clarification, it's not, I don't think, a big deal that we didn't start with the curriculum, because it's sort of a process of learning and learning curve, because I think it was about 10 years before we had an actual curriculum for Ada Vista as well. We started with Analingua. So that's just part of the process of figuring out what works and where our kids are at, and figuring out what tools we need to, make that happen. That's all.
Any other questions? Okay. Madam Secretary, can you please have a roll call vote?
Yes. Dr. Michaud?
Yes.
Ms. Steinmeier?
Yes.
Ms. DeBoer?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Covell?
Yes.
Dr. Fossman?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan, yes.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us up to informational items. I have one informational item. That's that we have the Kent ISD School Board election resolution. We need to take that up at this particular meeting and then vote on it at our next meeting. There are 3 people that are running for the ISD board. They were announced, I guess the closing for running was today at like 4 o'clock. So these are just came in. We've got Wendy Falb, Andrea Hadel, and Ann Hamming. And I believe there are 2 seats available. So what we're doing now is just considering that, accepting that this is the resolution, and we will take a vote next month at our meeting to have somebody, to elect somebody to go to the ISD and actually cast the votes for those people at the May meeting. We'll do that at the May 15th meeting, and then the vote will actually be in June. Yes. That's the only informational item I have. Superintendent, do you have it? Okay, we will head on to the superintendent's report then, and Mark, if I could get the cards.
All right. I'd just like to say thank you to Amy Major for hosting us here tonight. Amy, thank you for opening Central Woodlands tonight. It's great to be here. Thanks again to our wonderful team of students on project-based learning and their outstanding teachers. And thanks to the families who are with them here tonight. I'd like to talk about work that we are working on connected to the bond election. As you know, in 2018, we asked the community to authorize the school district issuing bonds for renovation work around the district, and we have been doing that work, and that continues. We also know that these renovation needs continue on as time marches on. Mechanical systems, roof membranes, parking lots, all those things deal with the Michigan weather, and we have replacement schedules for all of these items. As we saw tonight in the consent grouping, we have technology hardware that we take a small chunk of. We wish it lasts for 20 years, shoot, even 10 years on some of these hardware devices. That'd be helpful, but it doesn't. So we are planning for the next time that we need to come to the community with a question related to providing the board with the authority to issue bonds. The great news about that is we are one of the very few districts in the state that we do not have to use the state of Michigan's credit rating through the Michigan School Bond Loan Fund. And that gives us a little bit more autonomy here to find the best interest rate for taxpayers. But also, we retire our debt much faster than we would see a typical school district. We retire those bonds, all of them, from issue within 15 years. So that's a rapid retirement schedule. We see many districts in the School Bond Loan Fund taking 30 years to do that, twice as long. So that's a helpful piece as well. We are going through to look at all of our due diligence related to renovation projects that we know will be coming to us. Some of them are very mundane. Again, replacing the flat roof membrane on a building is a mundane thing. If you want to see that in action, it's actually happening right now at the Fine Arts Center, that roof. You'll be able to see the people walking around up there. You won't be able to see the membrane real well. But it's those mundane items, as well as items that are in greater need. So at both the Eastern and Northern secondary campuses, we need to do some reworking there to better accommodate student needs. We have more students participating in activities, and we love that. But we just don't want students out practicing on one field that's available with lighting at 9:30 at night. So at Central High, we have two all-weather turf fields, and at Eastern and Northern, we have one. We'd like to bring Eastern and Northern up to parity on that. We'd also like to correct some issues at Eastern. If you've got the Eastern campus, there's sort of one way in and one way out, and we've got a solution there. We'd like to renovate the interior of Central High School. If you've been in there recently, that certainly needs it, as well as the interior of Northern Hills Middle. We're also looking at the Aquatic Center. It's now been more than 3 decades, I think, with the Aquatic Center, and we have great programs there, but that is in need of some attention as well. So those are just some of the items that we're looking at. There are other school buildings that we're coming to in this sort of priority order of renovations. So we haven't been to this school. There are some needs in this building that we'll want to address. Schools like Meadowbrook Elementary, Ada Elementary, and the like. So we have some more buildings that we need to come to. Also, furniture. We've taken a little bit more time on the front end with the 2018 bond with furniture, because there is a whole wide variety of furniture that's out there now. And what we're learning, we've been testing a little bit of that furniture as well. We are sort of the business furniture capital of the continent, if not more. And more of those companies that are right here in West Michigan are in the education market. But sometimes some of these materials have not been around that long. And so we're testing those things. We're talking to our custodians in our buildings who will see how these things fare and hold up over time. So we're taking that a little bit slower on the front end, and we're getting more of that information. And we just recently this board approved furniture, I think, last month. That will be coming to many of the buildings that we've done renovations of the physical space for the start of the school year. Furniture also has a long lead time item. I can't explain why that is, but we're excited about that. And then we'll have more furniture that will be coming through to us throughout the next school year, probably at the semester time. We'll have another level as well. And we, just one other point on bond work. There's one area in the district where we want to shore up our secure entrance situation that we have during the school day, and that's at Eastern Middle School. Eastern Middle and Eastern High have a secure entrance through the high school entrance, but oftentimes parents and families find the middle school entrance convenient, and that's where the middle school office is closest to that area, so we want to address that issue as well. That's something we're looking to do with the 2018 bond dollars and the third series that the board just approved the issuance of last month. So there's a little bit of update on bond work, and we are doing more and more due diligence going forward. The great news in all of this is we want to make these renovations, these improvements, without increasing the tax levy at all to our taxpayers. Last year, this board approved the lowest tax rate since 1999. And that feels good, and we are not looking, even with a new question coming from the community, to ask them to increase taxes. I want to speak, this is also the time of the year where we are working on next year as we're celebrating the end of this current school year. Students have signed up for courses that they want to take next year, and we are now marrying up those courses with staff members as we go through the staffing process. That process is not completed, and we're making some adjustments. We made a few adjustments that our principals have in the last several days on that, and we're trying to make sure that we have everyone married up, not only with courses that they're certified and qualified to teach, but courses that they really want to teach as well. And then also looking at things. Tonight's a great example. Patty Colley is an expert in project-based learning, and she's finding ways to share that with more and more people. What we want to do in all of our buildings is to make sure where we've got expertise, whether it's an AP class or a different approach to instruction, that people are sharing that knowledge with new teachers that are coming along, and veteran teachers as well, with that cross-pollination. Speaking of cross-pollination, we had professional learning on Friday, and I say thanks to all of our families who were able to find something for their kids to do on Friday. I know my wife said to me, again, I'm up, but that is an investment. I used to teach kids in my social studies class that investments involve sacrifice on the front end for payoff down the road. So we had sacrifice on Friday for all of our parents and community members with their kids. And our teachers worked hard, and I say thank you to all of our administrators and our PBIS district implementation team. PBIS stands for Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Support. And what that really is about, it's an acronym, it's a program that's been around for 25 years around the country, but it's really about saying to students, and all great teachers do this, here are the behaviors that we expect in places. It's the classroom, it's the school, it's the hallway, it's the cafeteria, it's the school bus, and then acknowledging students when they demonstrate that behavior, when you can reinforce those positive behaviors on that and provide positive reinforcement. Research is very clear. The kids see that, aha, here's what I'm supposed to do. And when we have those consistent behaviors all through our 18 buildings, on all of our dozens of school buses, in all of our hallways, and we have common language all the way through, it makes it much easier for kids to remember and understand what those behavioral expectations are year in and year out. So thanks to all the team for putting their heads together on that last Friday. And then just finally, commend everyone to a variety of culminating activities. There are concerts tonight and throughout the next few weeks, as you'll see students demonstrating incredible learning and growth, just as we saw our students here tonight. And then we also have commencement coming up next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at Calvin University with, again, a variety of end of the school year activities. So it's great to see student learning on display and all the growth that's been inspired by our teachers and staff members and supported by all of our families. That concludes my report.
Thank
Thank you very much, Superintendent Bean. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent search. Last meeting, we agreed to form a subcommittee to get through some of the administrative stuff that needed to be gotten through. And so that subcommittee is Mr. Mashad, Mrs. Bonk, and myself. And I have asked Mrs. Bonk if she would be so kind as to be the grand poobah of the committee, and she has graciously accepted, so I will let her give us a little update.
Thank you, all of you. You heard from Dr. Fossen right when this superintendent Bean let us know he was moving on, that there were going to be a lot of times to put on your calendar. So already you've had the opportunity and you came out for us to be engaged in some training, because we're really lucky. We've only had to go through this twice in 38 years, I believe is the time, and that's almost unheard of, as we all know. Thank you, Superintendent Bean. What we learned loud and clear, I think, is it's okay if we slow the car down. We could pull this off by August 1st, but we have a community that we want engaged in the process, and I think we all kind of nodded our heads a lot, that it's okay if we say, maybe this isn't something that's going to take place till October 1st, or January 1st, or even a superintendent that doesn't start their contract till July 1st of 2024. Yes? Are we all on the same page on that? Okay, so we're going to kind of have two activities taking place simultaneously. We all have the opportunity to review the 4 proposals that came in from search firms. I'm so intrigued to see what you all say. We'll talk about that in a minute. But at the same time, we owe it to ourselves to start kind of doing a little vetting of who might be out there to serve as an interim for a month or a year. So we got a list from MASB, have some context I'm tapping into to see who's out there and how do we go about this process. So hopefully next time we get together, we'll have a little more detail, okay? So are we good to jump right into what you all thought about the groups that submitted proposals for our search? I don't have any organized way to do this. There are 4, so why don't we all just take turns saying, did one rise to the top? Are there several ones that you all think require further consideration? Our initial plan, when we were on to try to get this done, was to talk tonight, see if there were some that required further consideration and interview them Wednesday, and then have a special meeting Monday and decide. So I'm hoping this sounds good to all of you. What if you all probably have questions that require further review? Are there points of clarification we need to see? And I'm happy to look into that if maybe you email me questions, or I'll take notes while we talk tonight, and maybe do that Wednesday and see if these firms, however we decide, maybe one will come to the top, would be willing to come and present to our board at a future scheduled full meeting, so everybody can kind of get to see how they interact with us. I don't know about you, but I thought all the proposals were great. So I think a big part of this is just going to be who wants to be part of our team and who do we most connect with and embrace our vision more than anybody else. Am I making sense so far? Have I said anything that's messed up? Okay, so messed up. So in hopes of making sure we weren't going to offend anybody, I called all 4 of our proposers today. I only got one of them, and he was delightful. I explained the idea, and he said, that's no problem. I'm all ready to come in and interview Wednesday. I can't wait to meet you all, but I'm perfectly happy if that doesn't take place for another week and a half. So unless one of them advises us tomorrow that that's absolutely not acceptable, which I highly doubt, hopefully that's our plan, and we'll find Queen of Doodle mastering a time that we can all get together and do that. Sound good? Okay. Anybody want to share their thoughts? Anybody rise to the top of the pile, or everybody? Who wants to start?
Well, I guess I will start, okay? So for me, I did feel that somebody did rise to the top. It was Ray and Associates for me. That would be our 4th proposal. What really stood out to me about this particular group was, not only do they have the largest recruiting network, but I liked the proposal of aggressive recruitment for the right person, somebody that we seek, and that they would kind of attack that. I appreciated the clarity and the timeline that they offered. All 4 proposals looked excellent. There's plenty of work that went into those. But the thing that really stood out to me the most about Ray and Associates was their team. And I really looked into who was on the team, the incredible balance that that team of 4 individuals would bring to this search. I also appreciated that they were successful in finding recruiting superintendent, specifically for Bloomfield Hills, which is one of our sister schools. If they can find the right superintendent there, perhaps they can be as helpful for us. Not that the other ones wouldn't be good as well. Number 3, our 3rd proposal casts a very wide net, national. I did notice that Ray and Associates also casts a national net, but it seemed that to me, I didn't write the name down for the third, that would be Hazard Young Matea Associates. Hasn't really done much in Michigan. So, I mean, not that that's necessarily important, but it did stand out to me when I looked at all the recommendations. And speaking of recommendations, I really appreciate it for the Michigan Leadership Institute. I wonder if you all read Rockford's, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I found that really interesting. I mean, I really appreciated what Reichenbach wrote for us, really taking the care to know what our district is and pointing out how that particular group would be helpful to us. And yeah, I was impressed by that description there. Let's see, anything else I want to say about this? And of course, we have met. I think we met Szpitowski.
No, we met Jay Bennett.
Oh, we met Jay Bennett. Well, and actually, that's in the information there. The recommendations really did talk about how wonderful Jay Bennett was specifically, and I mean, we have met with him. He clearly has the expertise. It's a great program. MASB obviously has found the most superintendents for our state, so they definitely know the needs here, and lots of places we could go to for additional information. So those are my thoughts on that. Gray and Associates, to me, rose to the top, specifically for the team, the particular team, and the balance of skills and interests on that team.
Thank you.
So for me, my top one was Hazard Young. Is it, how do you say that? Is it Atea? Atea? Okay. Okay. I think what I appreciated about them, and this is true of Gray and Associates as well, I just liked the very professional manner in which I felt like Hazard and Young presented it. One of my main priorities will be how does the firm engage the community in some creative ways? How do they present that data to us? How does that data drive what happens next? I felt like they had incredibly thorough examples and tiers of support for engaging the community, with a lot of different examples of how they do that. Also different tiers of how they would get the word out that we are looking for somebody and what kind of person we're looking for. I don't know if I think that that's as crucial. I feel like most likely there's already people who are interested in applying for this position, and they're just kind of waiting to be told, where do I send my profile to? But I did like how they presented that entire package to us in a very professional way. I do agree, so they did find the term city superintendent in 1920. Well, otherwise, yes. 2019, 2020. Yeah. That person is all about service, yeah.
And just so you know, they also found Birmingham in the 17-18 school year, not 17-18. And she's still in the district, her name's Emma Robson, so that would be interesting to look into as well.
So yeah, I did
Your
know
district.
they had a lot in Wisconsin areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did notice that as well. I also felt like their proposed timeline was the most honest for what we are looking at, and what you just said, Mary, as well. I didn't feel like we were trying to rush this process. I felt like we were very transparent about we're going to do, a great job for you and put in our due diligence and make this be the best candidate that we can find for you. We're not going to pretend that we can do this by July 1st. So I did appreciate that honesty. So they would be my top firm. I did like Rain Associates as well. Again, they did provide really good specific examples of community engagement, what the schedule would look like, example advertising. So I did like that as well. MLI, same with Kristen. I know that they found a successful superintendent candidate for Rockford. The community members that I know in Rockford have been very pleased with that find, and just the way that he does engage the community. And so I do appreciate that about MLI as well. So yeah, so I would say Hazard, Young, and Atea is my top one, followed by Ray and Associates and MLI.
Thank you.
We got to get
just couldn't help but one thing that crossed my mind was looking at the proposed timelines and then seeing some that were so short and cramped, and I've got to say, I can't help but want to question why such a short timeline was even proposed. So
I mean,
that does raise questions for me.
I would assume though that they think that we would like to have this person in place by the school year.
No, they know we do.
Yeah, I realized they were trying to meet our initial request,
Right.
but I did wonder when I saw the other two, and I'm like, well, okay, this is clearly more likely.
Well,
Taylor?
that would be my bigger question, is that, is the proposed fee the same if you, and are you gonna be on our timeline? Can we slow down, if we know we didn't want an interim now, can we slow down this timeline? And I'm assuming that all of them would do that for us. I actually kind of went the opposite way. My top were MASB and MOI. And I think the reason that they stood out to me was because their sole focus is boards and superintendents in Michigan. And so they have a lot riding on finding good people in the state, and they know everybody in the state. And I was looking through a lot of the placements. Not a lot of placements are from MSB. And so while, yes, having a national search is important to us, I think that people who will move back here would be from Michigan, have family here, and so they would be kind of keeping an eye out, just from my high level opinion. So having somebody that's really familiar in Michigan was important to me when I was looking through this. And so those stood out. A lot of the fees were included too with everything. And I guess that's why they stood out to me. Let me see. But I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of follow-up questions that I want answered from everybody, I guess, so.
So do we want to talk about them now, or do you want to just put a list together?
I think put a list together.
All right, and I'll check with all four of them if it, relates to all four of them, and make sure you'll get those answers back.
And MASB, they have a national presence through other state organizations. HYAA, I abbreviated it. There were questions like, they said they relied on our attorney fees. Would that be extra money if we asked our attorney versus MASB has a very strong attorney? So I think those kind of things I had questions on.
I do too, I agree. Think about it in semantics, things that they assume we know that we don't. So we need to just, your travel, your background checks, your advertising, you know what I mean? All those little things are kind of explained differently by each group. So yeah, we definitely want to make that an apples to apples comparison.
MASB had more experience, but MLI, I like that the consultants were previously superintendents and had a lot of education background. And then that glowing review from Rockford. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I also host the Supes Academy, and I think they said something like 25% of all superintendents in Michigan right now have gone through that program. So they obviously, in terms of Michigan connections, that's hard to deny in terms of executives, leaders, superintendents. And again, not that MASB doesn't have a handle on who those people are as well. I for a number of those reasons, the Rockford review, between the two Michigan-centric folks, I leaned a little more towards MLI, I suppose. But similarly, I didn't see any that I thought, yeah, definitely not these guys. There's all the nuances. And like has been said before, I think what is the majority decided for me is just who feels right and who says, yeah, your timeline is perfect for us, and we want to do what you want to do, and we want to know you guys. Different things that did stick out to me. Ray and Associates also, they seem to go, at least I felt that they went into the most detail related to the community engagement, how they have organized them before, virtual and live, and how they've taken questions before, and how they've actually done the whole public process and gotten people involved, which reassured me. Again, is that something we wouldn't get from anybody else? I'm sure that we would get that as well when we said this is what we want, and this is the level that we want to go to, and how involved we want people to be. So I agree. I don't know if there's anything that we could take off the list just based on that, and that maybe if we formulate some more questions, whether clarifications from their proposals or just general questions that we want to ask everyone about our specific interaction, maybe that is probably necessary to help us narrow down even let alone pick one. Or maybe that process helps us narrow, and then we bring people in physically to meet with us, or however to end up picking down the road.
Yeah, I think to be sure, they all mention community engagement, they all talk about how that's important. I appreciated the really concrete examples of what that looks like, what that has looked like, and how that can be tailored to your district.
I like the last two, Hazard Young and Ray, only because I feel like they cast a wider net for us. You know, for some of the proposals, I really like the timeline on the one. I think if we're gonna have the process stretch out a little bit more, but I have the same question, like, can we pick when that starts and is the cost the same? You know, so if we say, hey, we want you to go this far, and I said this at the meeting the other day too, but I mean, we're in the business of education, you know, I mean, we're looking for a CEO and our product is education. So I think if we're gonna be looking, I'd rather look as far as we can because we know the pool is really small. So is the pool small in Michigan or just across, you know, the board? So I just have that's where I was gravitating towards, but I, like you, I think I have, you know, more questions or, you know, that are coming up, but I think right away that's kind of a gravitate. I thought it was funny with Ray Associates though, is they said, we're familiar with the Michigan as we currently are conducting the superintendent search for Forest Hills Public School. And I said, no, this letter has got to be about a year old, and it is, because it was Forest Hills in Ohio, I believe, that they conducted the search. And I said, they're doing what? You know? So I immediately was like, okay, let me see what else is going on here. But I ended up researching them more because as a result of that it was like, well, that was kind of a surprise that they hired themselves before we had a chance to do anything. They're very confident. But I like you, I agree with Maggie's assessment as well too on the other one, so it was just kind of a toss-up. I wasn't really, I mean, I didn't even gravitate to the other two, which was really weird. But there might be something in discussion that comes up that I'm completely missing, so I'm anxious to hear, you know, everybody else's opinions on that, so.
Well, I know when we were talking about pricing too, that I did appreciate that Ray and Associates had a cap listed, unlike the other three. But what I also liked about, Hazard, was they would consider price matching other. So that's something we might bring up with each of them as well. You know, this is what we're looking at price-wise. What's your cap, and would you price match?
Is there a coupon out there for that?
I will tell you a fun little piece of trivia, because this very cool book, who was handed to us by somebody who I've known and Dan's known for a really long time, is the 2005-06 superintendent search process. And what we saw in that book is that the price that we paid for a consultant for their services in 2005-06 was $16,000. One thing that obviously has not succumbed to inflation. Isn't that crazy? And we have proposals in here for less than that. When we were all said and done, we ended up spending more than double that because of all the clarifications for travel and advertising and background checks and all that kind of stuff. But I thought that was very interesting. They were called Bickert and Associates back then, and so that they've been combined with two other firms under the name BWP who did not submit a proposal this time, which was a bummer. Yeah, it'll be fun to work with them again.
That is a nice thing among the four. I was worried, and from what we had heard, especially about national firms, that sometimes the price can get exorbitant, and it's not in these proposals that they're. Luckily, cost doesn't really need to be a driving factor of saying, oh, are they worth $50,000 more than these other people, because that's not the case. So that's kind of a nice thing that you don't have to worry about that. They all seem to be justified, you know, even though they're a little bit different, so that's nice.
My only thing there is that MASB and MLI provide support after. For at least a year, MLI and MASB really definitely numbers, whereas the others were definitely cost. Hazard was an extra $15,000 if you wanted support after. So if you think about those kind of things, and if we want support for those, they're really drive up the cost.
I guess I'd just be curious to learn more about what we would need support for afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what everybody has said. There are things that I thought about as well. I think the thing, the two that I thought rose to the top for me were MLI and Hazard. MLI in particular because of their Supes Academy and the depth of knowledge that they have here in Michigan and the number of superintendents that they work with. They would know maybe some up-and-comers that are going to the academy that are really doing some amazing things. So I thought that was, you know, a good benefit in their favor. And I know all of them, the other three put in a timeline that sort of met what we had said in our proposal, our request for proposals that we were looking for, of trying to find somebody, you know, by summer, maybe as late as October, and so they obviously presented timelines that fell along those lines, except Hazard. Like, Hazard knew what we needed before we even went. They provided a much lengthier timeline going, you know, you don't want to do it that fast. And so I thought, you know, wow, they're already anticipating our needs, even just through this proposal. So I really liked that about them. You're right, I don't think that we could go wrong with any of them. But I think the idea to go and, you know, have a quick conversation, get some clarifying questions answered, and then see how that goes. And yeah, I think a lot of it is going to end up being, all right, who do we feel like really gets us and that we can work with very easily? So I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yep. All right.
So are you thinking that you will talk to all four of these then?
Well, here's my observation. The only person that said MASB was Mallory. So I'm asking you, do you want to extend an interview opportunity to all four of them? But we heard MLI across the board, we heard Hazard, and we heard Ray. Same as all of you.
Well, you have to like, tell us.
I will. Truly, I am always very proud to be part of this board because you all said stuff I thought. What's very interesting, that one person I did connect with was Mike from Hazard Young, and the first thing he said, aside from I'd like to have a chance to work with you in an interview, is I know that I kind of stepped outside the box in proposing that different timeline. If you really wanted to do it shorter, I'm happy to do that. I just think that's a step. So that actually impressed me even more. So I didn't even have to bring that up. I also have a friend who's a superintendent in LaGrange, Illinois, who's worked with that group and has had great success. So that probably also influences me a little bit. The one thing I would say that maybe is a little different from everybody else is that we really want to do ourselves some due diligence. 90% of the searches done in the state are through MASB and MLI. So I do think we owe it to ourselves to at least bring one of them to the table to see what they have to offer. We had great luck with using an independent type group that was a national search last time. So I'm very inclined to make sure we don't miss that opportunity as well. So I'm open to anything. It seems like it would not hurt us. I'll get the clarifying questions. Maybe at our next monthly meeting, we have 20 minutes to just say, here's the update and who we extend interviews to. Would that be kind of right?
Before graduation?
Yeah, that one that we're talking about, the ISD resolution. And maybe just a quick update and, figure out who we extend invitations to. Silly little thing, just me, I feel like they're either all Zoom or they're all in person. I don't think it's fair to let people come because that's always going to impress me more. So again, talk to them. The person from Hazard said I'm already to fly in. So I hope they are all willing to fly in, whether it's this Wednesday or the week and a half. We got to get through some graduations and stuff. But that would be my only kind of nitpicky little thing, is to make sure that stage looks the same for anybody that comes and talks to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they want to do this, they can come and do it.
And just play it
in person.
So yeah, I'm looking at my notes. I saw things, I'm so sorry guys, I saw things a little differently as far as I thought there was a 1-year support with Hazard Young. And so a lot of clarification to go back and see who does what. Ray has a 2-year warranty, the other people have a 1-year warranty. I know, right, I don't know how you do it. Right.
Warranties? I think we need to leave space for some human error as we've read through this anyway. I mean, this was a lot to read in a short amount of time, and there are definitely some inconsistencies in what we said. So I have noticed that, so I think revisiting it.
Can I clarify though, so for the firm selection, are we looking at still 2 stages left to go, essentially a get to know you thing for possibly all 4 of them, and then yet another more personal interview with somebody to pick somebody final?
I think we can all just ask them to present to us when we schedule our next special board meeting. So I think the in-between stages, I'll try to see clarifying comments from all of them and make sure you all get that, and then invite whoever we think needs to be invited to sit with us, and presumably after that meeting, we discuss who we're going to invite. Does that make sense?
So maybe the next handful of days, whatever, if we have specific questions for specific places, we can collate those.
Yes.
So we can start to get that list together to ask them. And then we'll see their responses.
Yes.
And then we'll decide to bring in.
That's the plan. How obnoxious would it be to ask you guys if you could turn around questions in the next 2 days? I mean, hopefully you have them already written down, right?
Don't need it.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
No.
No. Yes. Yes. right? What should we do differently, or does this seem like a workable plan?
I think it seems workable, but will you just clarify, while this is happening, what's happening on the interim front?
We are finding people that will be interested through many different ways and sources. As we heard from our trainings, people see approaching this in many different ways, somewhat informally, posting, kind of going to do diamonds, for lack of a better term, not literally, but you know what I mean. So we're still trying to do our education as we all learned on how to properly approach these people and make this something they're excited to do. So I don't have a good answer for that yet, but when we next meet, hopefully we will.
But we don't need to go through the same lengthy process for
Absolutely not.
interim as this, right?
No, literally there are people that have just, and I will give you a perfect example. There's a gentleman that is currently finishing up an intern position, and he's already being contacted for the vacancy at Caledonia because he knows them. And it might just all work out that way, as simple as that. So, you know, how do we make sure that we all get a chance to know who we'll be working with for a month to a year, you know, in a way that also is accommodating to what they're expecting out of this process? Okay?
Yeah, so those two things will run parallel.
Yes. Does that sound good?
Like you have your finger on the trigger.
This is relevant, now we'll go.
Okay. All right, I think we have our marching orders then for the next couple of days at least. I'm going to suggest that we take a very small little recess so that our younger friends who have been extremely patient and very well behaved can have a chance to head on out and go home and have the rest of their evening to themselves, and then we'll reconvene. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can grab it. Probably the worst one. So that's not so big.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, how are you? Oh, you're welcome. A little scary. You guys were smiling. Yeah, that's right. Right. That was awesome. They said it I played so I played.
What should be first?
I'm not gonna tell you the word, but.
Is it a tricky one, or am I just done?
I don't know, I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
You got a lot of yellow there.
I got Wordle done. I haven't gotten Wordle yet today.
How you doing? Good seeing you. Things all good?
Like I did, you know? Yeah, and each of them.
Graduation.
I know, being on that stage, you know, it's like, my husband's like, what's going on?
I was watching Katie up there. He on fire.
Okay, so what did it?
My dad, he is
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and I had to do it. He said that as well.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Why? He says why. Don't talk to me. It's a camera
He's got that coffee lunch there. Yeah, we have the PBS, man. All right.
See ya. See you.
How are those?
All right, we're gonna move on here. Thank you, everyone. All right, we're going to move on to board communications. Anyone have anything they would like to share?
Sure. I'm happy to start us off just with a foundation update. Many of us were able to attend, most of us, the State of the District Luncheon this week, which is an excellent event, as it always is. Great to highlight all the things that are happening in the different buildings and see the art and essay contest winners, and it was a great celebration, Superintendent Beam's final luncheon. So it was a great event, as it always is. The only really announcement coming from them is for the other annual events, or another annual event, the Charlie Anderson Golf Tournament in June 20th. There's still room if anybody wants to sign up as a foursome for that event, or if anybody wants to kind of pay the way for a foursome of staff, teachers, anybody else to play. You don't have to be a golfer to participate necessarily, so that is all on the website, fhpsf.org. And that's kind of the update. Emma Rodell, our new executive director, is well underway and drinking from the fire hose as she described it to me, so it's all is well there, I think.
Anybody else have anyone? I have one. I've been working for the last almost year now as a member on one of the equity inclusion task force that our director of equity inclusion has, Tamasha James. I am very pleased though, because I'm a little bit busy with superintendent search and all of that stuff now. I'm getting a little underwater, and I realized that it was great when I was at SPN because I wasn't doing any other jobs on the board. And so I thought this is and it was a great way for me to get involved in something in particular in the district. And so I have asked Mallory if she would be interested in taking over the board spot on that council, and she has agreed. So hopefully she will enjoy it and get as much out of it as I did. No other board communications for each other? Okay, then we will go on to our public comments. This time, we welcome members of the community to address the board. When you are called, please come up to the microphone and state your name and your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please direct all comments to the board. Per established procedures, we will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Everyone who indicates that they would like a follow-up from the district will get a follow-up from the appropriate administrator. If I call your name and you have changed your mind about speaking, you may just say pass. First up, we have Jared Jakubowski.
there is something very wrong with our country. An honest observer would come to a sad conclusion as to why. You've heard the trope, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. Our schools are not part of the problem. Schools are the problem. The last few years brought that to an undeniable head, but this pustule has festered for some 4 decades. In the 1980s, America's students were at the top of countries worldwide. We now rank around 25th. Back in that time, almost 90% of Americans professed to be people of faith. Today, only about 30% of millennials have a faith-based moral compass. Back in that time, a huge majority took patriotic pride in our country. Today, scarcely 20% of millennials do. And back then, young men and women were men and women who graduated with career objectives that would support a family. Today, only about 20% of millennials consider having children and family an important goal. All the traditional values that made America strong, joyful, prosperous, and meaningfully educated have eroded. What the hell happened? A surprisingly frank article in Education Week admitted to the collapse of American education standards since the 1980s. Forest Hills is not magically immune. Most notably, there's been a dizzying degree of grade inflation and dumbing down of curricula, from grade school to high school to college. For example, textbooks for 12th graders are now typically written at the 7th and 8th grade level. Our own district's woke obsession with equity is seen in its disdain of meritorious achievement by saying bye-bye to valedictorian and salutatorian awards. Not so coincidentally, the influence of radical left educators in schools from K through 16 intensified, prioritizing social and political literacy over actual literacy, science, and math. There are some truly praiseworthy academic programs here, but there is plenty of distracting, warm and fuzzy, feel-good stuff too, insane fury identification aside. Heard the expression, a fish doesn't know it's wet. Well, truth is, many involved with education are all wet and immersed in a blue-pilled matrix. But there is a school of woke fish here swimming with no question in the same naive, disastrous, Orwellian groupthink direction. It takes integrity and courage to go against the flow of your tribe swimming the wrong way, taking our children of this country into the abyss. Please, please, for God's sakes, push hard against that deep, dark, prevailing current. Thank you.
Kathy Schneider.
I'm Kathy Schneider, and I'm a parent with a senior this year in Portsmouth. Need my address. Or no, that's good. Okay. I'm here really just to speak about the concern about staff. And Forest Hills Northern has had an issue that you're probably well aware of over the last week and a half. And my concern really, we hire top-notch kids. We left the district during COVID and came back. This is a top-notch school. We found that out with a year in another supposedly college program. No more comments about them, but we feel like you have a top-notch program here. We really like the teachers. We really have been happy with what's happened at Forest Hills Northern. Unfortunately, some of the last year, there's been some concern. Staff opening, I met with the principal, met with the teacher. My daughter has the teacher right now. Really worried about the lack of consistency from one high school to another. The high school principal actually verbalized to us there's no specific format for filling positions and how to go about doing that. She said each high school principal can kind of handle it however they like. They don't need to survey the staff. They don't need to ask who's interested in an opening. They can just have a disagreement and retaliate and say, you're going to this building. And that doesn't feel really good when you hired a top-notch person who really is enjoying their career or wants to continue to have an enjoyable career. So I'd really like us to, as a school district, maybe look into what's going on and try to get maybe some consistency. Where I work, we have a business process for everything, and you cannot blow your nose without a specific way that it has to be done. That gets to be a little cumbersome, but I think in our case, maybe we need a little bit more business processes. We've got a new principal, and maybe she doesn't have the guidance on the proper way or how maybe we've done things in the past. I don't know. Others are saying that this is just kind of typical. You're a teacher, you go where you're told, that type of thing. Seems really sad that we hire these top-notch folks and then don't treat them like professionals that have spent 20 years building a really awesome science program and 10 years investing in a dream of a passion for a STEM program, and that just like try to rip the STEM program apart, and when the person doesn't perform, plop them into another school. That it doesn't sound like the way we've done things in the past, and I think we need to kind of look at what's going on in Forest Lawn. The least amount of staff movement was the other thing that was said. Oh,
Thank you. Deb Emery?
I'm Deb Emery, I live in Ada. Okay, at the 5, 6, and above buildings, the kitchens have received all this new equipment and ovens, warmers, sandwich slides, coolers. The new ovens that they received, and there's 2 ovens per kitchen, are $30,000 each, for a total of $60,000 for 2 ovens. They're really nice. They put in a little pod and they will wash themselves. Not only the cost of the ovens, but the water and the drain lines that had to be installed. The equipment here at Central Woodlands is new, one of it's in there. The ovens that were replaced were only a few years old. I'd like to know who authorizes such an over-the-top extravagant expenditure. This would be for 3 high schools, 2 middle schools, 2 5, 6 buildings, $420,000 just for the ovens. That doesn't include all the warmers, all the coolers, all the extra stuff that they got. I don't know if any of the elementary schools are going to be getting any of the new equipment also. That would just add more cost. In my opinion, over the years, I've seen money that has been spent has not been spent fiscally responsible way. Examples, when Central Woodlands first opened, they spent over $30,000 trying to dig several wells out here to put underground sprinkling on the playground. It never happened because they never put water. So that was just that. But then up at the high school, they used to have the practice field in between the regular football field and the middle school. There was just a dirt field, a band practice there, and that was their practice field. They put an underground sprinkler there also. So then a couple years later, they rip out all the underground sprinkling and put in that new field that they have, that artificial turf field. I guess the wasted money that I've seen when I worked at this school. You know, there's other examples, I can't think of anything offhand. But you guys can remember, it's not your money. There needs to be better accountability with the people's money. Thank you.
Thank you. I already apologize. Chaya Agrawal.
That was actually pretty good. Chaya Agrawal. I think you've heard from my fellow families. I'm a Forest Hills family for the last 11 years. I'm the junior. and I have also a seventh grader. We participate in Chinese, STEM, wholeheartedly believe in the programs, and I love the things that I've heard today. But my concern is similar to some of the other families, where we're concerned about inconsistencies that we're seeing at the high school level and things that are happening at Northern that may not be district-wide changes, but rather changes that are being made, and there is a lack of communication and visibility to why these changes are being made. The elephant that's not in the room, of course, is the fact that Mr. Ye was a topic of discussion for the last week and a half. He's an AP physics teacher. He was the sole choice, not just the only person reviewed, but the only person even under consideration for supporting a psychology opening, and for still several psychology teachers were considered. Teacher staff, whether they wanted the position, the opening wasn't provided to anybody. And then this is concerning when we talk about passions and making sure that the teachers can teach their passions. And we talk about developing our math and science program. How can the teaching staff support development of their science programs if they don't have a part in how their staffing is used, right? There's other things that are happening. We talked about the courts for graduation. Forest Hills Northern was removing the courts. Kids petitioned at Northern and they got them back. We still don't know why. And it's still through rumor. Everything we're hearing is through the students. We need to be hearing things from the school, and we need them to be telling us why they're making the decisions that they're making. If we're unhappy with their choices, as long as they're making the best decisions for our students, I think that's critical, but we're not getting that information. And when everything comes through rumor, I have to hear about everything from my 11th grader. That's upsetting to me. And I think the board just needs to be aware that this is going on in our school. And these are only the things that I know of. These are the only things that personally impact my student. I don't know what's going on elsewhere. And I didn't even mention STEP, but we don't have time for that. But the point is, there's a lot of things where there's changes that are being made. Everything is being told through the students verbally, by rumors. Parents might get different information, students might get different information, but nothing's reported.
Thank you. Robin Vandercheck?
I'm here because I was tasked with the assignment of reading this library book from cover to cover, which I did, and as a result, I was quite traumatized by what I saw inside here. I've actually documented page numbers and what was found on the pages, and I'll leave this with each member of the school board to look at. You may keep it, and if you want to confirm it, I've got a copy of the book too that I'll share with you. I reached out to family and friends. Some were graduates of Forest Hills. We've got a large family, an extended family. Members from Africa, India, South America, Korea, all college graduates with either bachelor's, master's, PhD. So they're very well read, and they're readers and raving readers. But to a person, not one of them would ever advocate having this particular book on a high school shelf for a minor to read. So I will just pass the paperwork here. And I was just going to share also with parents, because unless you see it, you don't know.
Thank you. Leslie?
After 3 years attending these school board meetings and observing, listening, and researching, I've learned a great deal. At the top of my knowledge is the understanding that the school boards are only there to legitimize the actions of administration. You're given expenses to approve only after checks are written. You're given pre-approved agenda for approval. It's admin that drives all decisions. You're simply there to rubber stamp for the approval. Actions of the admin has caused community divide, and this board takes the heat for those actions. I found out recently that Forest Hills Public Schools is now in the business of mental health services after visiting www.fhps.net. Right there in the center homepage, in a big button called Mental Health Resources. Now, I would expect that link would take to Network 360, Hope Network, and other professional mental health resources in King County. Now, these agencies are listed, but you have to scroll down to the very bottom to find them. Listed at the top is Forest Hills Mental Counselors, 48 of them, many hired with temporary grant funds. These were temporary positions. However, they do not look very temporary to me. I have questions and hope you do as well. What are the professional licenses these mental health counselors hold? What insurance coverage does the district have to cover any malpractice, medical malpractice? When you're passing yourself off as a mental health counseling service, Forest Hills Public Schools is just one suicide away from a major lawsuit. Are you prepared? Any act of violence is another lawsuit waiting to happen, and are you also prepared? I suggest you look at the website for yourself. Why was the Board of Education never consulted on a long-term plan to offer mental health resources to students and families? Now, just in the remote possibility, this is the main webpage of Forest Hills. If it changes tomorrow, I do have hard copies I printed out today, so it's there. It may be gone tomorrow, but it's there today. I suggest that you check out our new service that we're offering. Thank you.
Vincent Monhart?
Is rated R for violence. Children should leave, and my speech reflects my personal opinions only. Schools recently celebrated Scholastic Book Fair. Now, normally, this is a time to review a student's interest in reading coupled with support from the schools. So imagine my surprise when I attended an elementary level book fair and found this book being sold. It's Refugee by Alan Gratz, arguably a good book with a powerful message for adults, but it's wholly inappropriate for 4th grade and younger children. I'll read. They would choose someone to drown every night. They would tie his ankles together and his hands behind his back, and then they would hang him upside down with his head in a barrel. Then they would fill the barrel with water, slowly, so they could enjoy the panic, so they could laugh. He would thrash around and breathe underwater until he drowned. There are descriptions of corpse looting, dismemberment, and a woman forced to choose which of her children lives and dies in this book. Do you want to be the one to explain to a 9-year-old what flogging is? What about a headshot? These terms are in this book. And 9 to 10 is the average age of a 4th grader, the oldest demographic that this book will be compelled to. The world's a dark place, and eventually adolescents learn this. But why is the school in such a rapid rush to shatter the innocence of a child? How young is too young? Some 1st graders as young as 6 or 7 are ready to read chapter books on their own. Don't we owe it to our children to let them know happiness in their earliest years before they face wickedness? Scholastic Books has shown that they're unfit to determine age appropriateness of books, and this is an opportunity for our school board and administration to act. Scott Haig. There are more prudent organizations that offer books to our littlest without stating it. Let's partner with them. If you must partner with Scholastic, you have a clear example of their recklessness and just cause to marshal resources to vet every book that they try to push before you allow them to be sold on school property. Will you step up and protect our children? School board, you're in a unique position. Seek a superintendent who takes a firm stand and defines what inappropriate topics are at each level. One that partners with your academic committee. Someone who devotes time and funds to curate books on the front end with you, designed to raise pillars of the community without mentally assaulting and damaging them. Will you step up and protect our children? Community, you can hold the administration accountable. Talk to your children. Read their books, trust your gut, and voice your concerns. Children are not miniature adults. Arguably, the greatest kindness that we can give them before adulthood is the best shot at a peaceful and innocent childhood. Good day.
Thank you. Scott Van Solken.
Hi, Scott Van Solken. First off, I wanted to say I attended the Wizard of Oz. My daughter was in it. It was a very good production. Very happy to see that. She's also going to be in the FHC Inspires, which I think is a really cool program that they're offering in the Honors English program. I would like to glom on to what the other woman said regarding the finances. I got this from your board finance committee regarding the new computers for $710,000. 1,300 devices, 237 monitors. It's just this one little half sheet of paperwork. What kind are you getting? What's the warranty? What's the specs? Anything like that. What's happening to the old ones? Are they getting recycled? Are they getting donated? Do we get any money back from those? Anything like that. Just a little bit more detail. Again, when you're spending $710,000. I was just recently at the Cascade Township board meeting where the fire department came there, sort of hat in hand, waited 2 hours and 40 minutes to be able to get to talk with them, to talk to their board about getting $1 million fire truck in 2025. So they had to put the order in now. And they gave a decent presentation. There was information about it in the board packet. Just, again, you guys authorized $710,000 rubber stamp of our taxpayer money. Again, and the person that could maybe give more information, Susan Case. I mean, you guys don't even have to do the work. It says who's recommending this. She's the director of technology. She can fill out all this stuff. And then Julie Davis over there can give more money in regards to the 433 checks that you guys approved for last month. Out of the about $7.5 million spending in checks and ACH deposits. And again, President Fausten, I'm just going back to your September 2020 Facebook post where you're running for the board. I believe I can help achieve greater transparency between the school board superintendent and the greater Forest Hills community. At basic level, the agenda and meeting minutes distributed before and following board meetings are so minimal that they provide little useful information. And I agree. And you haven't done anything to change that. Again, you don't have to do the work, ma'am. These people do. Christina Neese, Julie Davis, Scott Haig, and Superintendent Beam, and the other administrative people that we're building this beautiful building for. Over, I don't know how many millions of dollars we're spending on that building. They are the ones that have to do the work. You guys oversee it and supervise it, even if you guys don't want to do it. If it's out there in the public, so we can review it, so we're not spending $30,000 on an oven, or an extra $30,000 on well drilling that evidently doesn't work. You know, things like that. So there's more oversight besides just the 7 of you people. If the packets are more detailed, like every other municipal government in your district, who actually collects the money that runs this district, their board packets are hundreds of pages long. Yours are terrible.
Yeah, it was wonderful to see the students present today. I'm a proud father of 4 children that came to this school, so it was great to see project-based learning. So that was fantastic. So, and it's interesting because I'm going to get to some driving questions myself, so I'll share those. I want to call out, thanks Scott. I think you did send a reply to some of the questions I had that I brought up regarding some of the content in the books that we've seen over the last number of years. But I want to reset for this conversation. I wanted to mention something, a little history lesson I got today. I heard on the radio about the Truman Committee. I was reminded that Truman Committee was created to investigate national defense spending. And it was done because there was problems with waste, inefficiency, and war profiteering. So just something to keep in mind, this theme that comes up, to really look at and be cognizant of where we're spending our money and the content that is there. In the end, what's great about a committee like that, it drove better behavior. So I'll just refer to middle school handbook. I mentioned this before. In the handbook, you call out, and you've approved this, you cannot display anything that has clothing under dress standards that has hostile, intimidating, or sexual content. So that's clearly stated in your handbook. You also, under inappropriate use of personal cell phones, you cannot store images that are partially nude or nude. Storing these images can have extremely serious life-changing consequences. Students caught with nude or partially nude pictures of underage people could face a felony with pornography charges, and Michigan law requires their expulsion. If convicted, the student could be forced to serve time in juvenile detention and would be required to register as a sex offender. So some of the content that you even heard today, I've asked this question, but I didn't get an answer on this, is what is the difference between some of the content you're hearing and the fact that someone could take a picture of that, make a t-shirt, and wear it in school, and it could be in trouble? I don't know what is the difference? I really would like to know that. This policy, in the end, that points out the student takes full responsibility for this. Okay, so you've called this out, the students are responsible. So my question is, what's the difference between the content you've heard, someone puts it on a shirt, or takes a picture with their phone, who takes full responsibility? Is that what we need to do? Maybe have some kids wear the t-shirts around of the content that's in these books? Would that make a difference? And then getting to the opt-out, how would in that case happen if someone was opting out? Again, I know this is a big issue, and we've been up here talking to you about it in a number of ways, but I will send this as a follow-up. Just wanted to ask those questions.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Ruprecht, 2526 Buttress. Same thing. There are people in this room that have made demonstrative false statements about our LGBTQ students. One was a public statement made that we had a small LGBT population. By making them comfortable, we've sacrificed our education. That's 100% false. We had another person that's not here this evening say that our LGBT kids were merely a fraction of 1%. 100% false. And I believe made to just create chaos, that statement anyway. So, if you average the most recent results of a national Gallup poll, Williams Institute data, CDC numbers, Pew, census data, the results equal approximately 7.2% of the US population identifies as LGBTQ. So, we have roughly 9,350 students in Forest Hills, which would mean that on any given day, there's approximately 675 gay kids in our school district. We have 29,000 Forest Hills residents, meaning there are approximately 2,100 gay community members at any given time. These numbers don't include their families, their friends, or just the good people that support them. Last week, a group of swastika-wearing, Sig Heil saluting neo-Nazis crashed a drag brunch fundraiser. This was in Ohio. They were there to call people groomers. They were there to accuse people of wokeness. They used some of the same intentionally misleading information we hear every month from some people in this room and some people that aren't even from this community. So, if you find that a group you have aligned with, some of the members of that group, in some ways stand alongside literal Nazis, it's time to take a really good hard look at whether or not you align with good guys. I've heard at some of these meetings, people have explained that they're involved only because of the book issue. That's originally how I got involved. But if you remain silent about the bullying of our current FH students, you're complicit. If you take exception to being called an attacker, yet you continue to fund lies and bullying, you are complicit. We need, as a community, as normal, people that can think, stop wasting this board's time with politics and attacks on libraries that are not broken. Those attacks have only shown that our libraries aren't broken, but one person's ability to navigate them is. Let's move the focus back to the business of working with our board and our teachers and our admin, not demanding from them, and providing a solid education in a safe place. Thank you.
And the people go.
Hi, I'm Ed Bufadel. I live on Scarborough Drive in Ada. You probably know I've been an administrator at Grand Valley State University for several years. So your conversation about trying to select a search firm inspired me to fill out the card at the last minute and say a few things. I've served on several high-level searches at Grand Valley, either as a committee member or I've chaired a few of them myself. And I'm not sure what's in those packets from those 4 candidates, firms that you have, but here I want to give you some unsolicited advice of some things to look at over the next few days or few weeks here. So one is to ask each committee, each search firm, what method do they use to have candidates actually apply for a position? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. We had one search firm that said, all we do is ask for them to send a resume initially. And if we like the resume, we ask for more information. We ask for a cover letter, perhaps a statement of philosophy of education or something like that. And the reason they do this is they make it easy to apply. And they get more candidates this way. The problem is that you get candidates who really aren't interested. And they're like, oh, yeah, I got my resume right here. Here you go. So you got to think about that, but at least find out, like, how hard do you make this for candidates to apply? If they say, oh, yeah, well, we have them do a resume and a cover letter and statement of philosophy and this statement and record a video and so on, you're going to lose some people who go, I don't have time for all that. So that's one thing. Another thing is, as much as you can, I would recommend you ask which associate is actually going to work with you directly. That specific person has certain talents or lack of talents and can make a huge difference in terms of how the search is conducted. A couple of bad examples that I've experienced. One was we had an associate who just during our deliberations just felt like saying, I would say inappropriate things. And I was chairing that committee. Inappropriate in the sense of saying, oh, you know, if you hire this person, they have another person that'll come along too. I'm like, what? That's not what we're here for. So I had to talk to this associate afterwards and say, that was inappropriate, and the whole committee is offended. You don't want to have a conversation like that. Also, just find out how good they are with email. I'm aware of a search at a different university where the associate just wasn't very good with email, and they lost some candidates there because they didn't respond to email. Finally, I'm not sure how this works with the superintendent search, but some of the high-level searches at universities are called closed searches, which is that the candidates are never revealed to the public. And in fact, the whole process is private until the finalist is announced. And notice that I said singular finalist. If you have candidates who say, you know what, I'm interested, but I don't want anybody to know that I'm applying, I would question whether or not they're a good candidate for a public school district like this one. If they can't stand the heat of, hey, I'm a candidate here,
Thank you.
then maybe they're not a good candidate.
Hello, can you hear me? My name is Michelle Van Allsburg, resident of Forest Hills for 37 years. Central Woodlands has been an amazing school for both my kids. This is where they gained their independence and made new friends. Amy Major is a phenomenal principal and is welcoming to all families. Mr. Patrick and Mrs. Tennant have been a blessing to my daughter. They keep me updated if she is struggling in areas or mastering anything she has been working hard on. Lisa Webb, the resource room teacher, is also a huge asset. It has been so fun volunteering for Popcorn Fridays. She works so hard for her students. As for the social, emotional aspects, we were so thankful for the Lionheart Experience Assembly. It was life-changing for my daughter. She left feeling very confident. Through songs and art, they go over identity, self-esteem, and self-worth. Another goal is alleviating and preventing childhood anxiety and depression in schools. In regards to books, I wanted to share a memory I had in 5th grade at Pine Ridge, reading Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It was the first book I read at school with a Jewish family in it that wasn't just a book on Hanukkah. The book made me feel represented in a predominant Christian town. Friends would also read it and say, Michelle, she's Jewish too. Imagine how I felt being seen. Now think of any other child feeling out of place. Kids need to read books that represent their families. Books teach us about each other and our own unique lived experiences. Librarians and media staff are so crucial to our schools. These wonderful people have been called groomers for the past 2 years by members of Forest Hills for Just Education. This group has an unusual obsession with drag queens and attacking the LGBTQIA community. Their recent attempt to shutter an Algoma library failed. They sent flyers with drag queens reading to kids to Algoma residents. I'm seriously not lying. I understand not all humans will agree with each other, but terrorizing people is not okay. I do not believe they give a crap about suicide, whatever Doug Lee was saying. The LGBT community, the children, are at the most risk for suicide. So shut up. We gotta keep fighting for our families and students and our teachers. Thank you.
All right, at this time, public comment is closed. Thank you for your input, and if you requested a follow-up, someone who will from the administration will contact you. All right.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, you need to fill out a card in order to comment.
I haven't been in a meeting, so I don't know about your card, but I would like to speak.
Well, we'll be happy to talk with you afterwards.
But the community
All right,
should also
at this time, may I have a motion to adjourn?
No.
Yes. Yes.
You said at Easter that everyone would be able to talk if they wanted to.
I move that we adjourn this general meeting of the Board of
Never
Education.
change the policies.
Do I have a second?
I have a comment about something that was spoken about.
I have a second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.